Hello everyone, Jolene here from Bookworm Adventure Girl. Welcome back. I hope that you are all well. And if you are new, thanks so much for checking out my channel. Please hit subscribe and stick around. Today I am going to be talking about my top 10 books of 2022, at least so far. From January 1st to April 30th, I read a total of 48 books. And I only rated 6, maybe 7 books, 5 stars. And some of those 5 stars are rounded up from 4.5. And this is where things kind of got tricky. It was with the 4-star books. I read a lot of really good books that I only rated 4 stars. But in some ways I found them more enjoyable than some of the 5-star reads. So I don't know, do you ever do that? So I think in this one I am going to give a couple of honorable mentions. I'm not going to share these in any specific order. You know, sometimes I do a countdown of the top 10, but I think that I'm just going to share the 4-star reads and then the 5-star reads in no particular order. So I won't go into a lot of details since I already, talked about all of these in my monthly wrap-ups, but I will leave links to all of those videos below if you want to hear more about the books. So I'm just going to share what I liked best about the books, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to start with the 2 honorable mentions. Both of these honorable mentions I did as buddy reads, and I really enjoyed both of them. First is, I'm gonna go with this one. First is Canada by Richard Ford. I really enjoyed reading this book as a buddy read with Rainer from Rainier Books. And I still think about this book, which is a good sign. And I definitely want to read more from Richard Ford. This was the only book that I've ever read by him. And I think what I liked most about this book was the way that it was written. I like that it was told from the perspective of a 15-year-old, somewhat naive boy. He's telling the story about what happened leading up to the time that his parents robbed a bank, and then tells what happened afterward. So there was a lot of tension in this book, tension between the characters, but also within the characters themselves, their internal conflicts. And because it was told from Dell's perspective, from the 15-year-old, there's a lot we don't know about the story, and that, I think, was just as important. And then the next honorable mention is the buddy read that I did with Nikki from Red Dot Reads. We read Silver Sparrow by Tayari Jones, and again, it was the writing in this book that I think was excellent. The characters in this story are so well developed. This is about a man who is basically living a double life. He has a public family, a wife and daughter, and he also has a secret family, a different wife and a different daughter. And the story is divided into 2 parts, each part told from one of the daughters. And I really liked when the story was told by Dina, the secret daughter. And again, this story had a lot of tense-filled moments in it. So those 2 books could easily be switched out for 1 or 2 of the other books that I rated 4 stars, depending on the day, and they could easily be in the top 10. But I am going to go with these 4-star books. So I read Miss Benson's Beetle by Rachel Joyce as a buddy read as well. I read this with Deb, who is a subscriber and a friend. And my favorite part about this book is how the 2 main characters were so different from each other. Marjorie Benson and Enid Pretty are the most unlikely people to form a friendship. And yet that's exactly, what happens in the story, and it's done so well. I loved both of them, and this book has some really great moments in it. And then next up is One to Watch by Kate Stayman London. And this is a romance and a twist on the TV shows The Bachelor or The Bachelorette. And I was not expecting to enjoy this book as much as I did. So I like when a book can surprise me like that. It has a really good body positive message, and it was a fun read. I liked the perspective the book was told from. Once the show that the main character gets on has started, it's told in episodes. And I'm glad that the number of characters, didn't become overwhelming, which I thought might happen. It also made the show feel really real by sharing behind the scenes and the social media aspect, which I thought was a very clever way of doing things. These next 3 books, I'm going to share about these. I debated between 4 and 5 stars, and still now, I'm kind of, I could have given this a 5-star, or maybe this one is really a 4-star, so I kind of go back and forth, and, maybe I'm the only one that does that. I don't know, do you do that? Do you change your ratings sometimes? Okay, so let's move on. This book, right now, I have rated as a 4-star, but depending on the day, I could have given it a 5-star, and that is All In by Billie Jean King. I really enjoyed this book. Billie Jean King, goes all out. She writes with such honesty and passion for sport and for inclusivity of all, and I loved every bit of it. I think the only reason that I gave it 4 stars is because it's kind of long in parts. It reads fairly quick, but I know that there were, some moments where I was like, how have I only read 10 pages when it felt like I had been reading for a very long time? Again, it was a really good autobiography. I mean, Billie Jean King is incredible, and what she has done for women in sports, for the LGBTQIA2S+ community, it's all amazing. So I was really happy to have read this. The next 2 books kind of go the other way. I gave them 5 stars, but sometimes, I kind of wonder if I should have only given them 4. First is The Betrayal of Anne Frank, and this is by Rosemary Sullivan. I found this book to be very interesting. It gives enough background and backstory that if you have never heard of Anne Frank, if you don't know that story, then you get caught up pretty quick. And then the investigation into the cold case, starts, and it does get a little dry at times, but I didn't mind that since I'm very interested in this story. So I honestly think that I gave this book 5 stars because it amazes me that this team did all this work to find out who betrayed the people in the annex when, not only did I think it would never happen, but had never really thought that it was possible. So now there has been, some controversy around this book, and I admit that I have some mixed feelings about some of it myself, but it certainly gives you something to think about, and, overall I thought that it added kind of another layer or layers to the story. And then the last book that I kind of question what I should rate it is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. I gave this a 5, but sometimes I think it's really a very solid 4. I think I mostly upped it because, again, I was surprised at how much I did enjoy it. I was surprised by how much I really liked the characters, most of them anyway, and I was surprised at how comical it was at times. And I do like when a book can surprise me, so I think that that's why I rounded it up, and it is an epic story. So the next 5 books on the pile I gave 5 stars to, and these would be in my top 5. Again, depending on the day, the order of these might change. So these are the top 5 in no particular order. First is The Talented Mr. Ripley by Patricia Highsmith, and I read this with one of the group reads that AJ from AJ Dunn Reads and Writes hosts. They do a monthly read-along of thrillers called Killer Reads, which I love that name. And this was a great first pick. I was really impressed by how Tom Ripley was written. This is another story that has a lot of tension, and then where the things that are not said or left vague help to make the story even more intriguing. So I really liked this, and I do hope to continue reading more in this series. The Happy Ever After Playlist by Abby Jimenez, I also gave 5 stars to. Abby Jimenez is a newer author to me, and this is the second book in the Friend Zone series. And I actually rated the second book higher than the first, which is very rare for me, especially in series. And I already have the third book to read. I love the humor and the banter. The characters have been great. And I think I mentioned this in my wrap-up that I even like the dog in this one. So somehow Abby Jimenez makes me care about the characters and the story. So for someone who really doesn't read a whole lot of romance, this has just been a really good series for me so far, and I'm hoping that that continues. Up next is a book that I was unaware of, but it was part of my group for the BookTube prize in translated fiction in the first round, and that is Khalil by Yasmina Khadra. This was my #1 book of the group. It's historical fiction, and it is narrated by a suicide bomber whose vest doesn't explode when it's supposed to. So you are inside the person's head, and of course, after the vest doesn't work, they have to figure out what to do. And of course, they don't want to be seen as a coward, and they also have to live with the aftermath of the explosion and what people are thinking and saying, including their own family and friends. So this was just such a unique way of telling a story, and I absolutely loved it. Then the final two, let's do this one next. So The Maid by Canadian author Nita Prose. I adored this book. There's a bit of a mystery, but I really enjoyed the main character, Molly. It had a bit of an Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine kind of vibe to it, in that the main character isn't great with, social cues and is misunderstood quite a lot. But the story is really about friendship and community. And Molly, has found a dead body in a hotel room when she goes in to clean the room. And she ends up becoming the prime murder suspect. So I thought it was, clever how things go down, and that, Molly can teach us all a thing or two. And then last, but certainly not least, is Scarborough by Catherine Hernandez. And this book came second in the Canada Reads debates this year. And I thought that the structure of this book was just really unique. It's told in alternating perspectives, mainly of several children who live in Toronto's neighborhood of Scarborough. It has a lot of diverse characters, and it deals with a lot of really hot topics. So immigration, racism, systemic racism, LGBTQIA2S+ characters. It has a lot going on. But I thought that it was done so well, and the movie came out not too long ago, so I'm hoping to see it soon and see how it holds up as a film. So those are the top 10, or really 12, books that I have read so far this year. Please let me know in the comments if you have read any of these books on this pile. Did any of them make it into your top 10 reads of 2022 so far? Or maybe you've read some of these and disagree with me and maybe you didn't like them. I'd love to hear about that as well. And I'd also love to hear, what your top books have been so far, because maybe I'll add them to my list. So I look forward to chatting with you in the comments. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and don't forget to make every day an adventure.